Hello and welcome to another episode of Every Other Friday Off. Today we're going to be fixing a clunk in my front suspension. You may have seen a previous video where we installed Vauquelin coil-over suspension. And for the first week or two after the install, everything was going along pretty well. But then one day, with no particular warning, the clunk appeared. This one right here. Or here. A loud thunk coming from somewhere near the passenger side strut tower. This is the top of the strut. A rubber washer is the top of the sandwich holding the strut to the unibody. Underneath is a strut top mount, which is a rubber bushing with bearings inside. Everything's done so that the sandwich bottoms out, so tightening the nut more doesn't actually affect the preload on the rubber bits. This is a weird design and allows movement at the top of the strut. Now add lower, stiffer springs on some old bushings, and look what happens. Brian at NGen Customs and Performance does great videos on Abarths, and when he did some Coney Yellows with lowering springs, he strongly recommended that you replace the strut top mount. I, however, am both cheap and stubborn, and decided I knew better than the guy who works on Abarths all day long. Shockingly, I was wrong, and step one's going to be replace the strut top mounts. Wheels off, and let's go ahead and get some preload on that suspension so the strut doesn't fall out until we want it to. Counter hold with a 5mm Allen wrench, and there's a nifty trick for making your wrench bigger. The hex on top of the strut is pretty weak, so treat it as you would your daughter, and under all circumstances keep it from stripping. The extra torque I get from the wrench trick keeps me from making sudden jerky movements that are going to strip out the hex. We're going to be completely removing the strut, so the first step underneath is to remove the sway bar end link. You need to pop off the wheel speed sensor line and the brake line from the strut. Then we need to undo the two pinch bolts that hold the hub to the strut. If you've got a camber adjustment like these Vauquelins do, then bear in mind you've just bought yourself a new alignment. Release the preload on the suspension. Undo the last couple of threads of the top nut, and your strut should drop right out. It's actually pretty easy to do. No need for a spring compressor on the Abarth models, especially not with lowering springs, so we'll just impact wrench that top nut right off and pull the assembly. The old top mount pops right off. I didn't immediately see anything particularly wrong with it, which made me wonder if I was really on the right path or not. But I've got the parts, so let's see what happens. Assembly is the reverse of disassembly. All reassembled, GoPro, duct tape flashlight, ready to test. Oh! This actually is a significant improvement. I'm really working the car over to make it do this, but it's pretty clear that it's still not solved. This is actually a pretty common problem with the Fiat Abarths, and it has to do with this goofy strut top design. A fairly common fix is to just flip the washer over. It's beveled, so by flipping it over, you can actually increase the preload of the whole rubber sandwich on top. Another solution is to add washers to increase the preload. I like this idea, but I'd like to go with a slightly bigger washer. This is the improved strut top mount from Corsa Forza Performance. It allows a significant amount more preload, but still contains a spherical bearing, allowing the movement that's part of that strut top design. I feel much better about an engineered solution to this problem rather than the halfway fixes. My wallet begs to differ. This mod can actually be performed without pulling the strut by just removing the original washer and nut on top. The Corsa Forza top mount slides over the post on the strut, a washer goes on top, and then the nut tightens the whole thing down. Use your 5mm to counter hold, and you can really preload that top mount. Corsa Forza mount is installed. Let's give it a test. Top end of that strut's rock solid now, and the clunk is gone. Woohoo! Fixed a problem. I hope this video gave you some clues about any problems you're chasing. If it didn't do it for you, consider looking at sway bar end links and bump stops. Please consider liking and subscribing, and we'll see you next time on Every Other Friday Off.